29 December 2022. In this edition of What a Fuck, I'm going to talk about an interview that Lavrov gave. Now, the past few days I have been attacked severely about my channel and the fact that I obviously support the Russian side of the story. And as I said previously, I was confronted and said, yeah, but why do I only tell the Russian side and why don't I tell the other side? And my response was simply this: if you want to see the other side, switch on your TV, open a newspaper, or visit your local newspaper websites. Then you see the other side. I'm telling you the stuff that you will not see on your TV, that you will not see in the mainstream media, most of it. And many of the times I'm going to talk to you about incidents in which my version will completely differ from the version that MSM is giving you. And there is a lot of stories about how bad the Russians are, and the Russians invaded Ukraine, and the West denies the fact that they actually built up that whole pressure cooker in the Ukraine with only one mission, and that was to destroy Russia. But they deny it. But the evidence is there. And the recent remarks from Angela Merkel has really thrown the collective West under the bus, because she openly said that the Minsk agreement was purely to bullshit the Russians and play for time so they can build up the military forces in the Ukraine. And those things are coming out. And then from some of my interactions on Twitter, it is quite clear that there's a lot of people that has been so brainwashed and so pumped with the Russophobia that their minds just simply refuse to even consider the possibility that they have been lied to and that the ideas that they have is wrong. They cannot begin to imagine it. And I feel sorry for them, because reality is going to shock. And what we are seeing, what is now happening in France with the immigrants. If you're a follower of my channel, you would know I've spoken about the immigration problem many times. And apart from the fact that it's my opinion that those immigrants is the WWIII soldiers, I also spoke about the social issues. Those immigrants are doing things there in France, in the streets. They are so destructive. They are doing things there. If they do the same things in their home countries, the security forces would kill them. But that woke, lip-tart, confused European people think they can blow whistles and have them stop. And those people are basically one step away from being raw barbarians. And the destruction that they are doing now in the streets is clear. That is barbarians that do that. In the past, millions of Europeans would go into the streets and protest, and you never see violence and you never see destruction. And all of a sudden, look at that shit in Paris. But the Europeans are going to pay for that foolishness. They were warned, and they did not listen, because they allowed the liberals and the woke shit to take full control of their lives, and they're going to pay dearly for it. But let's get back to Lavrov. Vladimir Putin is threatened with physical elimination by US agents. Kiev is trying to get a head-on collision between NATO and Russia to destroy our country, and there is a threat of a clash of nuclear powers. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's key statements. Some unnamed officials from the Pentagon have actually threatened to launch a decapitation strike against the Kremlin. In essence, we are talking about a threat to physically remove the head of the Russian state. if such ideas are really being hatched by someone, that someone should think very carefully about the possible consequences of such plans. And the West will not listen. And those maniacs sitting there in the shithouse in Washington, they think they are untouchable. And I have said it a few times. Putin is the reasonable guy in the Kremlin. Take him away and get somebody, say for instance, like Dmitry Medvedev in the seat, and the West will shit bricks. Kiev is trying to drag the Americans and other NATO members even deeper into the maelstrom of conflict in the hope of making a head-on collision with the Russian army inevitable. Suffice it to recall the November 15 provocation with the downing of a Ukrainian air defense missile on Polish territory, which Zelensky falsely tried to pass off as Russian. Now, I have spoken about it in many of my Skidmarks. Zelensky is a dangerous man, and the West, he is their puppet. But that fucking puppet is out of control, and he will get the whole of the West into a nuclear war without blinking an eye. And his handlers are too fucking short-sighted and stupid to see it. And I blame the American people and I blame the European people. They have empowered their leaders to adopt this rabbit stray and start feeding him and making him big and strong. And now it's clear, he's got rabies. Now you have a problem. Now the reality is, if your dog gets rabies, you know what you're going to do with it. I'm just worried, I'm thinking, I'm trying to imagine how this will end for Zelensky. Will it be him falling out of a window? Will it be an overdose? Will it be a car crash? Or will it be a bullet? I don't know. But it's going to be something like that. He's not going to walk away from this. They cannot allow him to walk away from it, because he knows too much. The actions of the collective Western countries and Zelensky controlled by them confirm the global nature of the Ukrainian crisis. It is no longer a secret that the strategic goal of the United States and its NATO allies is to defeat Russia on the battlefield as a mechanism to significantly weaken or even destroy our country. In order to achieve this goal, our opponents are willing to do a lot. The West's policy of total deterrence of our country carries the risk of a direct armed clash of nuclear powers. And I've said it many times, if you take the Russian political top structure and you evaluate them and you look at the West, the Russians are the only adults at the table. But this remarks from Lavrov should be taken seriously. The Western narrative is that the Russians are struggling in the Donbass. Well, they make a big story of what's going on at Bakhmut, and they talk about the Russians struggling at Bakhmut. The Russians are not struggling at Bakhmut. The Russians are sitting on the outskirts of Bakhmut with their artillery, and they are grinding those Ukrainians up. There's so many stories about the Ukrainian losses. It's all bullshit stories. I've seen videos from people on the ground in Bakhmut. I've heard interviews with Ukrainian soldiers that surrendered. The Ukrainians are losing up to 1,000 people a day in Bakhmut. And they are losing a hell of a lot of equipment every day. And now I believe there's a major issue. The Bakhmut forces is running out of ammunition. Let's see what the next days will bring. But the West is willing to sacrifice every Ukrainian. And that is something we should keep in mind. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.